Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Reels and Heels. And today we got our good friend Willow joining us.
Hey peeps!
And a very good friend of ours who's an awesome artist, Josh Bauer.
Hey guys, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh man. And you know, it's been an interesting week for you, right? Going back to your classroom.
Yeah, school's weird. I've moved my class twice.
Oh,
School year hasn't even started yet. I'm afraid.
I think you'll be fine.
I don't think my body can take another move. Because I had to do it all by myself. Like, I'm not allowed to have another person. So, yeah, it's a weird world we live in.
Yeah. So this episode, we're going to be talking about most shocking heel turns for all those that are wrestling fans.
Everybody needs a bad guy.
Everybody needs a bad guy. So, Josh.
yes, sir.
How's things been going with you and your art?
Yeah, interestingly, so the actual art, the paintings, the stuff you see in the background here of the video, I've kind of taken a break from all that. Sales weren't the greatest before the earth went to shit. So afterwards is like, trying to get people to buy some artwork or buy a painting is a little rough right now. So I've actually changed my focus more into doing more graphic design stuff. I've been doing logos, intro videos, all kinds of different stuff for a variety of different people. That's been going really well because everybody's starting a podcast or a small side business or something to like that. So everybody needs a logo. So that's been actually going really well. And then I started my own podcast called Back Talk with Bauer, and then like a side podcast, Back Talk with Friends. So that's been going really well right now. And we just hit episode 14 of the podcast, and I've got the whole month of August set up with different guests and everything. So, it's kind of been a weird pivot moment for me for the past few months because of everything, but it's kind of been working out well, and it's been a nice change of pace.
We're just looking at something here. Somebody's saying that we got an echo going on here from Josh. I don't hear it on our end.
It's not him though. I don't think. I think it's coming through somebody else.
I think it's coming from your guys's
because we're not
speakers and hitting your microphone. I think that's where it's coming from.
Might have to turn me down a little bit.
I'm gonna turn everything down a little bit.
Let's see. Because I don't hear the echo on our end.
That we wouldn't.
Oh.
Oh, there we go.
That's how that works,
So, like I said, today's episode's heel turns. And for those that know wrestling, we know what heel and babyface is. For those that don't know what that is, the babyface are the good guys and the heels are the bad guys. That's for what it is.
Babyface are the guys we love, and the heels are the guys we love to hate.
Yeah. Or just hate.
Or just hate.
Depends on the heel.
But
Well,
I mean, often I will actually appreciate the heels, and then they turn good in the end. So
That's always kind of a weird turn for me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It depends on how long they were heels. There's just some guys that are made to be heels, like Brock Lesnar. It's really hard to see him as a good guy at all. Even Chris Jericho, he just seems to be better and thrives better as a heel than a good guy. You can still root for him when he's a good guy, but it's a little more fun when he's a heel.
Yeah, I think Jericho back in the WCW days, when the cruiserweights were like the top of WCW, when he was a face, he was really good. And then he started that heel turn when he started losing matches, and he would get mad at the ref and kicking the ropes. And
I think you never knew what was going to come out of his mouth as a heel.
yeah.
I think that was the fun part, because he didn't always he let it all go. Like, he didn't hold back. And like, that's what made Austin a good heel. And that's what made, I don't know, somebody else. Who else? I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Alfred Pennyworth has something to say. Until the NWO came around, we went from guys you love to hate to guys you loved, even though they were bad guys. And that's pretty much how I feel about it, too.
Yeah, that was kind of like, the whole thing with the NWO and DX. They like, there was a coolness and an attitude about both of them that, and even Austin, everybody wanted to flip off their boss and all of that.
I think that's what made it work, though, because they were always at odds with that greater power. They were always the rebels. They were always the ones that were like out there, making mischief, sort of, and I think that was what added to our watching experience. Like, it made it more fun. Mm-hmm. So I think more people were ready to check it out.
Yeah. So I went through a list of, over the years, there's been a lot of heel turns. I didn't want to go too far back. So right now, I'm just going to throw a name out there. Let's talk about Sergeant Slaughter.
Okay.
The 80s, he was the All-American,
for me, the face of G.I. Joe.
He was G.I. Joe.
He was actually a voice of a G.I. Joe character, too, which is, like, I think made his heel turn even bigger, because he was kind of messing with your, like, kids' cartoon stuff, too.
Yeah, and this was at, right at the height of, the Gulf War, and, and wrestling always takes from the headlines and, turns it upside down and turns it up 10 notches, and
it burned a lot of people. Like, I think they couldn't fathom it. So
yeah, at that time, Sergeant Slaughter was as American as Hulk Hogan, and when he aligned himself with was it Colonel Mustafa?
Yeah.
The Sheik, right?
Yep. Yeah, and he became basically a Iraqi sympathizer at a time where we were at war with them, and it just threw. I think that just threw everything into chaos with that character, and a lot of people got upset with it. And he, so I watched, and I'll probably be referencing a bunch of times, but I watched a bunch of different videos, kind of like a research thing before we got started today, just kind of remembering some stuff, some like Sergeant Slaughter's turns like so long ago. I remember it, but I don't remember. And you don't realize how much heat somebody gets. Some of these heels get sometimes, and he did such a good turn at such a crazy time. He was actually getting straight up death threats. That's hard to say. Death threats from people, which just like, and they were coming in tons and tons because they just really thought. And this is at a time when people were still thinking wrestling was real. And they just were pissed and not happy, and just, yeah, it caused a lot of chaos.
They were mad.
Yeah, and especially what he would do on TV with the American flag, and
that was pretty. I mean, and a lot of it was pretty cutting edge. Like, it probably wouldn't do the same thing that it did now if it had happened, but back then it was. Yeah, kind of a cutting edge thing. Like, people were like, "How do you,
I mean, before that,
were up in arms.
Before that, you had like the the Russian guys, but we were in the Cold War, and but that wasn't. But
it wasn't like. I think Russia was a time period of its own, and so when we left the Cold War and we moved into the trouble with the Middle East. I think people felt that much more like, what's the word? Like,
It was like closer to the heart.
yeah, I think, and because of everything that led up to it, like Saddam Hussein was this like power that nobody could even understand. And then, I don't know.
Anytime you get something like in any WWE or wrestling story that has to do with America and American pride and all that stuff, it usually hits a stronger note with people than I think anything else. I mean, you even had, what was it, Hamid Masson in like the John Cena area. And I mean, he was like right at a little after 9/11, and or I think it was after, and he was just hated because he talked shit about America, you know, this and that. Anytime you do, I mean, hell, you can go to any WWE or wrestling event and just start a Ram USA chant, and it will fill the whole building. And I even remember there's some fun videos of Kevin Owens, who is one of my favorite heels, and he walks out, and you know, there was like some of the backstage stuff, or like it was stuff they would put on social media, and I think it was him and Sami Zayn. And he comes out and he looks at the camera and he goes, "Hey, watch this. I'm going to make all these morons chant a USA chant while two Canadians are in the ring." And he goes, and they cut to a few minutes later, and the whole crowd's going, "USA, USA." And he looks at the camera. He's like, I told you, they're idiots. They're more. So like anything USA or that involved, the wrestling fans are just really strong to it.
Yeah, especially with the Canadian wrestlers. Whenever WWE is in Canada, they're a strong crowd.
Oh yeah.
So at the end of this heel turn, we end up, I believe it was WrestleMania 7. It was it was him defending the title against Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan, being the face that he was, took down the heel, and I believe it wasn't too long after that, Sergeant Slaughter disappeared for a little bit, but then of course he came back.
Ian actually mentioned this in the chat. Sergeant Slaughter was fired originally from WWF because he took the G.I. Joe gig. Vince wanted to cut, and he said no.
Yeah, I don't know if Sarge had any power of getting him a cut. I think that was more of was a Sunbow Entertainment.
He could have handed over money for it, but I don't think Sunbow would have. It was his voice. It was his, well.
It really depends on how their contracts work and stuff. A lot of times if you're under WWE and these, like a different company comes to you to work with them, you kind of have to cut WWE into it to a certain extent. I know most of the times if you see a wrestler doing something with another company that's with WWE, 99% of the time, WWE is a part of it somehow, or at least getting some money for it. I think the only ones that like got away with stuff was Macho Man and Slim Jim. That was just Macho Man. So when he jumped over to WCW, he was able to take Slim Jim with him and still keep his money. So Vince McMahon wants his cut, no matter what it is, no matter what you're doing. If you're making a name in his company, he wants his cut.
Yeah. Well, especially with the characters, because the characters are not the people. The characters belong to the company. So, But anyways,
I gotta stop reading the comments.
According to one of the articles that I have up here, Sergeant Slaughter's heel turn is number 7 on the list.
Oh, okay. It's a pretty good one. It made a really big statement at that time. I think, made Hulk Hogan's win and championship run even sweeter because he was fighting for the good old US of A. So I definitely think it's one of those high-ranking ones.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, quit it. You're going to make me laugh my ass off. You go down there yelling, "Bonesaw is ready."
Yeah. So let's see here. I'm looking at a list here. Let's talk about Mr. McMahon for a minute here. Because for the longest time, he was the biggest face on commentating. Uh, you know, him and Gorilla Monsoon would be the baby faces, and they would have like Keenan, not Gorilla Monsoon, Keenan, Bobby the Brain, or
Randy Savage popped in a lot too, but I think he was babyface.
Jesse Ventura.
There you go. That's it.
Jesse Ventura. And then, you know, Jerry Lawler would come in, and they were all the heels, and, you know.
And now we have Michael Cole. Well, in the edit, well, we used to have Michael Cole. I don't know what he is now.
He goes back and forth. But Vince McMahon, you know, a lot of people at that time didn't even know owned the company. They just like, they thought he was the commentating guy. And for him to step into the spotlight pretty much right around the whole feud with Bret Hart is when the Mr. McMahon character came to be.
Bret screwed Bret.
Yeah, it still hurts a little bit with the Bret Hart thing.
I think that was a pretty shocking turn.
There's that Canadian pride there.
I have a soft spot for the heart, for the Hearts, so it's.
Well, you know, if you're even like 1% Canadian, you have to have a soft spot for him. So I think it's like written in your DNA and in all your legal documents.
Yeah.
So I do gotta say I miss a good McMahon commentary. I've been watching. I think it was this past weekend. I was watching some old wrestling stuff just to remember what it was like with crowds and the thing and everything. And oh man, I don't want to say it was cheesy because it was right for the time, but he put on this voice for his commentary, and it takes you back to a certain time. And then when he does turn heel and becomes Mr. McMahon that we know now, it's he puts on a different voice. It's really interesting.
He knows how to put on a good show, though. Like as soon as he steps into character, as soon as the suit is on, that's it. You get the
strut and the cockiness and the like when he's actually in something and he's doing like a real meeting or like just having a casual conversation, because you watch all this behind the scenes stuff now and he pops up here and there. You're just going like, who the hell are you? Oh yeah, you're a real person.
He's very soft spoken when he's actually in meetings and stuff, and
until he's pissed, I think. I would not want to be in a meeting when something goes wrong. Yeah, no, I just crawl under the table and be done.
The stuff that we were watching just recently with the Undertaker's last ride and all of that, you know, you see a different version of him when he's, you know, having those backstage moments with the guys, with even with, you know, people that. Well, even with the girls, even like John Cena. Well, even like way back when he was the prototype, you'd see a different side of him when he would congratulate somebody or, you know, talk to them. And so to see him, you know, swagger on out like he does.
It's interesting when he has the heartfelt moments after guys' matches, and they come in and it's either a good match or it was like a big time, like they won the championship or something big happened, and they go and because Vince is always in gorilla position on that one computer, and they come and talk to him for a minute, and you know it's a real strong back and forth, and just showing how much he appreciates his guys, to you know certain guys at least. And it's always interesting to see that guard down, the character turned off, and just being real. But you know, I even to this day, you hear that McMahon music hit, and you're like, something's gonna hit the fan. Come on, you know, especially nowadays. He's very rare in his appearances on camera, so when he does come out, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I do believe he's in the transition of letting because it's already been out there that Stephanie's the one that's going to take control of the company.
Right.
And so
she's been after that role for decades, though, hasn't she?
She hasn't been after it. It was already like set in the contracts that she was the one that was going to take over, because Shane didn't want to take over the company. He didn't want that large of a role. Plus, he has his own.
He was doing his own ventures, and
he was trying to do UFC or UFC and some other MMA type things, I believe.
Yeah, and then I think in like China or was it Japan, somewhere he owned like a cable company or something.
And now he's back for Raw Underground. I do have to say, if McMahon did not turn heel, you would not have the Steve Austin you have now.
No.
There would be maybe some type of Steve Austin because he was already in the creation and in the works. But for as big as Steve got, it wouldn't have happened without McMahon. Their feuds are so epic and a staple of the Attitude Era. I mean, if you go to a wrestling fan and name the top 3 feuds from the Attitude Era, Austin and McMahon are, if not number 1, at definitely top 3.
Right. And then, since you brought up Austin, why don't we talk about the Austin heel turn where he aligned himself with Mr. McMahon after all those years?
I actually just listened to Bruce Pritchard's podcast, Something to Wrestle With, and they went back and him and the guy that does the podcast with him rewatched that match, and how everything built up to it and afterwards. And Conrad, the guy that does the podcast with him, kind of noted how people were very confused at that turn and didn't fully understand it. And a lot of people were thinking that McMahon was turning good instead of Austin turning bad. So I think this one would be even bigger if it made more sense. But this one didn't even, like, it came in a couple of videos I watched, but it wasn't one that came into my mind really, because I don't know. I don't think it was done right. And then even Austin was always kind of a heelish babyface. So for him to be heel, they were still cheering him. Everybody was still cheering him. You didn't get Austin booed. Even at the end of the thing, you didn't even get Austin booed because, even when him and McMahon shake hands to try to solidify it more, people still weren't getting it.
Yeah.
I think that's because he was always a heel. Like, in our minds, I guess it was because he was kind of a renegade. Like, he was, basically flicked off his boss. But
his character was basically, and even in WCW, when he was stunning Steve Austin, he always was the guy that just didn't give an F.
Well, and rightfully so, which I guess is part of his personality, really. But I didn't understand this heel turn either. And I've watched stuff multiple times, and I've even watched the build up to it. And for me, anytime somebody aligns with Mr. McMahon, I don't really get it. Like, I'm like, okay, so
I think
everybody has a price, though.
True.
Hey, I get what you just. I get that reference. I think one of the heel turns, that kind of made sense, that aligns with McMahon, was The Undertaker, because The Undertaker was always Vince's boy, a guy that had plenty of opportunities to hop to another company and never did.
Yeah.
The whole, like,
when was this?
Well, it was the Ministry, and then they became the corporate Ministry when he aligned himself with McMahon.
It was me, Austin. It was me all along. That's like the main thing I remember from that one is the showing of Vince being the higher power. That's actually when Undertaker went to the Ministry and went that dark character. That's when my mom told me I wasn't allowed to watch wrestling anymore. After like the second or third crucifixion, she goes, "Yeah, you're done."
Wow. It's funny. Growing up, I was never told that I couldn't watch wrestling. I was told I couldn't watch The Simpsons, which made it even more fun to watch. But I don't think my foster mom actually knew that I was watching wrestling.
I think
I was just going to say, I love what Alfred is saying here.
And I understand that now. But when I was younger, 18, 22, like I was like, oh, I didn't get it. And I get it now because I'm in the business world and I'm like, yeah, welcome to the ass kisser universe. But I just, it was never something that it wasn't ever something that I thought was memorable. But
Now, when The Rock was turned to the corporate champion, that one made sense. There's some that have made sense. There's some that did not work as well. But yeah, like somebody like The Rock, he did it. They had him do it right. He wasn't much of an ass kisser. You just turn to the people that are in charge, and Vince was in charge, and that bad guy character. And it really, when you're looking at it story wise, it's even when you're like feuding with McMahon, you kind of get a rub because you're viewed as a high enough talent to get that rub. Like you work with certain guys or you get to feud with certain guys, it shows that you're up at a higher tier than other people, and it brings you up from like a mid card to a higher card because they trust you with this. It's even like when they give certain people the championship. You get the championship because you are now viewed as being a higher up and being a higher star, and they're going to put their trust in you to be able to do this. So when you get to be Vince's boy or Vince's champion, it's saying something. Now, it's supposed to make you look bad, and it's supposed to be the bad guy thing, but it's also shows up, something as a achievement of some sort.
Yeah. It's
and
all
I think
about business.
that's what gets lost when people don't understand the world of professional wrestling. They're like, we're just handed belts and handed matches and stuff, and that's why they have a lot of these documentaries, which back in the day they wouldn't, because wrestling was always a closed thing, and now it's open with social media and all that, and kayfabe doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
What's funny though is the more you learn about it, the more you're like, okay, so these guys really do put in the work. Like, these guys are trained athletes. They're, they're not just out there doing whatever. And then when you hear about somebody who touts as much as Bret Hart does about never injuring another person while he was in the ring, that, you are kind of elevated in a way that then you're like, okay, well, these guys have a craft. They're trying to make sure that they solidify the business and then solidify their name in it. Mm-hmm. And so it's not much different than what people do in Hollywood too. But I think that we kind of take it a little more seriously because we got a look inside.
Yeah, the more I see the insides of professional wrestling, the more I appreciate the business. I wish people would give it more respect and, not just say, oh, it's that fake shit. And, these guys don't do anything. Every time
I love watching the local wrestling. I have several friends who are part of the local wrestling groups out here in my city, and I love going to their shows and just watching them and cheering them on. I don't know how I managed to make friends with the heels though.
If you ever deny it though, I read Mick Foley's book before Have a Nice Day. I read it before a lot of the exposés in wrestling, like background documentaries and stuff. And so the back of his book talks about all of the injuries he'd sustained. And now most of them were in Japan. So take that with whatever grain of salt you want to take it with, because they're crazier there, I think. But he took a beating and every time got up. There's a love for a passion for whatever you're doing. So I think if you're doing that, then you deserve to have a name in the business for.
Well, and that's why Mick Foley is so loved, because people have seen the beatings that he has taken. He lost a freaking ear in a match. He does not have most of an ear.
I was in Germany against Vader, and Vader was so torn up about that.
He was distraught.
Yeah.
The only thing is, Foley was like, oh.
Yeah. Well, that's like even talking with injuries right now. I don't remember his name, but Matt Hardy just had a match on AEW this past week, and somebody named Sammy something cracked him with a chair, and he picked up the wrong chair, according to some reports, and busted him open.
Oh, wow.
And it's a big deal when you mess up like that, and it can really damage your career because it shows that you're not paying attention, you're not safe, your head's not in the game for whatever reason. It doesn't matter the reason. You know, there's everybody says there's always bad nights and there's bad this or bad that. But I mean, you got to take care. That person you're wrestling, their life is in your hands. No matter what you're doing, no matter how long it is, your life is in their hands and their life is in your hands. And if you're not paying attention, you could really take somebody out.
Yeah, and the thing is, these guys and girls, they go to school for this and they learn all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like most professions.
Well, and if you're a professional, you can admit that you made a mistake, but you do everything in your power not to make them.
Mm-hmm.
You're always thinking one more move ahead, or 30 seconds in the future. You're seeing what's happening, laid out before it happens. And I think that that's what makes wrestling fun to watch, because there is a story, but there's also like this like actual sportsmanship that's happening. Like for most of the guys, there are some guys, and I'm like, okay, what do you know?
There's a really awesome video. I can't remember what it was called, but it was on YouTube, and it was basically like the top 10 saves in wrestling, and it's not always a person's fault. It's just certain things kind of happen, or like ropes are slippery or this or that. But it's basically the person's opponent putting themselves, like trying to save the people, and like making sure somebody's head's tucked in first, or making sure they don't take the full front of a fall and things like that. And that really shows what we've been talking about, is the saving of and making sure your opponent is safe in the match. And some of these ones are just like, I've caught some of them, but there was other ones that I never even realized that they could have went and messed up. And you land on your neck wrong, you're not getting back up in one way or another.
Yeah.
It's funny, before we go into our next heel turn, one of the greatest moves ever, I think, was when Seth Rollins caught the RKO, and like it was in midair. I believe that was WrestleMania. It was the one
outside one.
It was the one in San
33?
No, it wasn't Orlando. It was the one in San Francisco. 31, I think.
Was it?
The one that Sting fought Triple H.
Yeah. That might be 31.
Yeah, Randy Orton was on like his hands and Seth Rollins was on his back, and Randy Orton threw him up in the air and caught him with the RKO.
Well, it's hello.
Sorry.
Seth was sent, or who was it? Seth was going to do the stomp. So Orton's kind of bent down like this, and Seth was back and went to go do the stomp and did the jump up, and then Randy gets up and they land the RKO perfectly.
Yeah, like Seth Rollins, like he went, like he touched the
high.
I have to watch that. I know I've probably seen it, but I think that moments like that, those that are priceless, and you're like, play the replay.
Yeah.
This Alfred brings up a good point. Is Seth Rollins is an example of with Sting. That something went wrong and Sting got injured, and at this moment he's not supposed to be wrestling. I think Sting may have gotten cleared again, but basically Seth messed up a drop or messed up something, and injured Sting and threw out his neck totally. Now, I think a person that was a little bit younger might have been able to handle it better, but Sting's up there in age, so that kind of played into the factor of it. But yeah, it was the wrong buckle bomb, and it really messed up Sting, and he hasn't been able to wrestle since.
Yeah.
But it was also like, that's not the first thing that's ever happened with an injury where, things had never really gotten back to, up in the comments, there was another comment about Brett saying that Owen needed to call Steve Austin to check on him, make sure that he was okay after the injury that he caused, because it was, to me, like the apology, like, I guess it depends on who's apologizing, but you know, I think that that's important to say, you know, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, you know, like
if you own up to it, you get more respect. If you go and blame the other guy or blame this or that, you get looked down upon. But if you admit it, and because a lot of these guys all know that mistakes happen, but if you go, hey, I am terribly sorry, I just don't know what happened, got into the heat of things or this or that, I mean, they're doing, it's just like any other sport. Yeah, it's planned out. Yeah, certain things are gonna set up and the endings are set up, but you're still doing big moves and you're doing very dangerous stuff. And if even the smallest wrong little move, even with Austin's injury with Owen, he was just down a little bit too far, and Owen Hart didn't check and couldn't tell, so he dropped him on his head and busted his neck. I mean, it could happen to anybody at any time.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of people, you know, when they talk about accidents that happen, they bring up Draws and D'Lo. And I think that, you know, part of that is that Draws always says it could have happened to anybody. Like, it wasn't his fault. It was an accident. And certain people don't deal with that well. Like, when they know that they hurt someone, they just can't function after that. And
yeah. Well, D'Lo, he went out and he was out for a while before he went back to wrestling.
And then he didn't stay for very long either. So, I mean, like, I guess it depends on how you feel about, you know, what you've done. Like, it's hard to hurt someone and know that you could have done something to stop it or to be better or whatever, you know?
So let's move on to the next heel. Well, this is what they call the famous double turn.
Yes.
Yeah. Bret Hart, up to this moment, was outside of Hulk Hogan, the biggest babyface in WWF. And
what year was this?
This was 97.
I think so.
So this was right before Bret Hart's exit. Then.
Yeah, 6 months before.
Okay, that I remember now. Watch the video.
The whole, you know, coming out and, you know, the fans cheering, him putting the glasses on the kid, and, you know, it wasn't working anymore. You know, and of course, a year before this, which we'll talk about later because it's the biggest, most shocking heel turn, you know, happened. And so Bret Hart, I think, needed this heel turn. And then the Steve Austin one kind of happened by accident. Fans were just cheering him anyways.
Yeah, Austin was already getting cheered, and the fans were really behind him as a heel before this match. And so they decided to do the double turn, which it does not happen often. And if it does happen, I think this is one of the best examples of it going perfectly. And even in a couple of the videos I watched, they were explaining that it switched both of them perfectly, and there was actually no words said. Just by the actions in the ring, you realize that Bret was turning to a bad guy, and Steve was now going to be the good guy. And this feud and this turn of both of them catapulted Stone Cold to the next level. This is where you get this match, and everything jumps after this. And he becomes the biggest name in the company after this match, because just the match alone showed off his never quit, never die attitude, and just bleeding like there's no tomorrow and not tapping out. And then it shows Bret being a bad guy and showing how quickly he could adapt to it. And I think it breathed in a new breath of life into his character that was desperately needed.
Yes, it was definitely organic. I totally agree, Mike.
It was a match that I still am like, I've never seen anybody bleed that much. And I've seen head wounds. Like, I've seen them. And they do bleed a lot, but
have you ever seen an old Dusty Rhodes match?
But like, to this day, I'm still kind of floored that much was like, he didn't tap. He passed out. Yeah. And if
you go to any wrestling school, I guarantee you they're showing that match to their students.
Oh yeah.
That match, as Mike said, it was an organic double turn, and just the match was an epic match. I put that in my top 5 best matches of all time.
Well, I think it breathed into life and kickstarted the Attitude Era too. I think that was one of the main things you can look back and go, okay, there we go. That's a shift. And now we go to this Attitude Era, and where Stone Cold is reigning supreme and just the biggest badass you've ever seen in your life. And it really changed a lot of things and kind of showed that the audience wants a little bit more realness, not so much gimmick stuff like they were doing in the early 90s and 80s, and wanted real people that they could actually cheer for. And Stone Cold was as real as it gets.
Yeah. So is there a heel turn that you have there on your list, Josh, that you would like to talk about?
I would love to talk, and I think it's one of the most recent best heel turns, and I could think in maybe the last good while, maybe 10 years. Tommaso Ciampa turns on Johnny Gargano at NXT TakeOver. I felt at first I did not see it coming, but then they kind of just were sticking around and hanging out. So they just had a match with, I think it was Authors of Pain.
It was a triple threat, right? It was them and the Revival. It was a ladder.
So. Yeah, it was a ladder match, and it was a fantastic match. And you really thought DIY was going to take the titles and win, and they don't win. So you have this long drawn out, like just them, like the audience giving them a bunch of love and everything. And I even thought it was done because the video I watched even pointed out they had the little logo at the end that kind of shows you, okay, we're done. There's not going to be any else. So usually when people see that logo, they click off and they're done for the night. And I'm just sitting there going, they didn't end it yet. And I'm sitting there waiting, and I'm like, and I'm going, no, please, no, because I love DIY, and the tag team was fantastic. And then you go and Tommaso just takes Johnny and slams him right into the Titantron, and it was fantastic. And it kicked off, I think, one of the best feuds in NXT since NXT has debuted. And you got like the greatest good guy in Johnny Gargano at that time, and the greatest, most psychotic bad guy in Gargano. When he has that wicked beard and just the new style of clothes he had and his new music, he took such a dark turn. And I didn't know these guys through their independent run. I know they were very big outside of NXT and WWE, but I'm not a person that was watching it. So to see these guys and see what they do was just, a lot of the matches, everybody just kept yelling, "Fight forever." And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm good. Let's just keep it going. And every match was different. Every match was amazing. And it was a very surprising heel turn, and the best I can remember in the last good 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I remember watching that, and I wasn't thinking of the heel turn. I was thinking that because usually a big event, someone debuts. I was waiting for somebody to come out and attack one of them, like maybe a rumored tag team or something, come out. Yeah, that definitely took me by surprise because they were like the bestest of friends, and to see that,
I watched that and I was like, "What? What's happening?" I was yelling at the TV, so I get it. And I wasn't even an NXT fan. I think I just happened to be watching it with you.
Yeah.
Well, and even when like every time it looked like Tommaso was done, and like, okay, he's about dead, he would go and do something else to him, and you're just going, holy crap! It really, I think that was one of the strongest heel turns too, because it just showed how much Ciampa, how dark he could get, and how far he was willing to go to end Johnny.
Yeah, I mean, those two put on what was it, 3 epic matches? That the only other matches that would rival it would be Velveteen Dream and his name slips my mind. With the tattoos.
Aleister Black.
Aleister Black.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh
With the
yeah.
This is the only thing you can think of.
I was like,
I
yeah,
don't
his
know.
name. I was because I remember those were matches of the year, like they were up for Slammies and stuff.
If you
Now,
want to
how
know what
emotional-
NXT, oh, go ahead.
Go. I was just gonna ask, how emotional do you guys get while watching wrestling? Because there are times where I just scream at my TV.
Yeah.
It happens.
And there's still some that get me really good. There's still like, and I've watched so much different behind the scenes stuff and more that I feel I try to guess and like see where things are going to go. And then when I actually get surprised on something, or most of the time you get the big reactions out of me where stuff, it looks like they hit too hard, or, you know, you're like, oh God, yeah. But yeah, there's certain ones that are just like, even Tommaso Ciampa's turn, like halfway through, I'm like, just hit him again. Hit him again.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, they just, it's been a little while, but they actually, I think, flipped roles recently.
Yeah.
And Tommaso went good. And it was close to the same time. I think they kind of switched together, and Tommaso went good and Johnny went bad. And I love Johnny. I don't love him as a bad guy because he's doing a really good job of that, almost that Edge style, that cocky, dick-headed bad guy, and it always drives me insane.
Yeah. And then, you know, of course, recently Finn Balor turned heel.
That one bums me out. It's cool to see him as this bad guy, but you don't get the demon now. You don't get some of the stuff from him. I really loved him when he came into NXT, and the heel turn's been fun, and I liked it, but I don't know. There's still something missing to it.
I just want him to be a good guy because he's way more. I think he's just more dynamic. Like there's not something hanging over. I feel like there's a cloud hanging over the ring when he's a heel.
When he just smiled so much too.
Yeah.
Well, and that, I think that's part of it because he gets into what he's doing. Like I don't know.
I think that smile is what won over the Fox News reporter that he's engaged to. But anyways,
come on, man. Eyes, y'all.
But let's see. Let's go back a little bit further and talk about Paul Bearer. This was a shocking heel turn.
So is this when he turned on Undertaker to go with Kane?
Well, this is before Kane came. This is when he turned on Undertaker and joined Mankind. This was when Mankind.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, Undertaker did the whole thing, and Paul Bearer had the thing, and it hit the urn over on top of his head.
Okay. I'm remembering this a little bit. Yes.
Yeah, and this was at the time that they did the Boiler Room Brawl between Undertaker and Mankind. This was what leads up to their long battle and Kane coming.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of miss with some of the old wrestling stuff, is how long and intricate some of the storylines were for stuff. Because you got that built into Kane and Mankind going, or Undertaker and Mankind going against each other. Kane eventually showed up. We had some Shawn Michaels into the mix. So you had feuds weren't 3 or 4 matches in a row and they were done. You had a match here, and then it kind of died down a little bit, and then it popped up again, and then died down again. And they kind of kept all these stories intricate and mixed together, so it wasn't, you still got a long feud, but it wasn't shoving it down your throat until we got bored of it and tuned out, and then they're like, oh, people are tuning out, we got to switch the feuds up. And I actually forgot about the Paul Bearer heel turn, because I just remember him working with Kane, but I totally forgot he worked with Mankind first.
Yeah. And reason why I have this on the list is it was shocking. Like, Paul Bearer was there from the beginning. It was Paul Bearer and Undertaker. And they went hand in hand, and it was like when he turned on Undertaker. If you remember when Brock Lesnar defeated the Streak and they had that guy in the audience, if he was there at that time, he would have made that face in the audience. Turn on Undertaker. He's a meme. I don't know what they call him. I think they call him.
It's not the Brock Lesnar guy because that's a different guy.
Right. It's the black guy that makes like the wide open.
Yeah,
mouth.
he's like the.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm surprised that one didn't make it into, because I watched like 3 or 4 different lists from different YouTube channels, and that one did not make it at all. So that's kind of surprising. And I kind of remember it a little bit, but that one doesn't top my top 10, I don't think.
On the list that I have, it's an honorable mention.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, this was it happened during the time Undertaker was wearing the purple gloves. This was after he had the feud with the fake Undertaker. Because it was SummerSlam. I believe it was SummerSlam '94.
Well, couldn't it be because Paul Bearer wasn't technically a wrestler? He was a manager. Or a,
I think actually he used to be a wrestler back in the day, but yeah.
Well, but in that
was a prop.
in that entity, he was kind of an associate. He walked him to the ring. He did all of his, crap fitting.
Yeah.
I would like at some point I'd like to go through Willow's list if you guys are down, because I want to see where some of the numbers hit for certain people.
All right, go ahead, Willow.
I'll put the link in the chat.
Okay.
All right. So let's talk about.
You mind if I bring up another one?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. So I'm actually wearing the shirt for it, but you got CM Punk and The Rock, and turn to one of my favorite feuds, because I love The Rock and I still love The Rock. But I really got into CM Punk once I loved him when he first debuted, but once he started getting into the after the pipe bomb and all that stuff, and he got to be more him, and then he had that good guy run for a while, and then he goes and The Rock shows up, and there's a lot of times in a lot of the videos I was watching that heel turns are perfect because they're justified. And this is one of the ones where it felt justified because The Rock and Cena get the main event at the WrestleMania for the next year. And CM Punk is tossed to the side again, even though he was like the biggest thing in wrestling at the time. And one of the best, him and The Rock had some great back and forth. But one of the ones was, your arms are too short to box God. I'm like... that was just the greatest line ever. The whole thing is fantastic, that promo he does, but that line itself is just so sweet.
Yeah, and they had a pretty decent match at that Royal Rumble that year too.
Oh yeah, well, and even the turn itself was really cool, because I actually just watched it because I kind of forgot how he turned, but it was some kind of match, and I think it was CM Punk and John Cena. And the Big Show came out and messed with stuff. And then The Rock came out. And The Rock was about to lay the people's elbow on Big Show. And you get it from the this far angle. And you're like looking at the mat this way. And you don't see the left side. So The Rock's coming to just about. He's like midway getting over to start dropping it. And Punk just comes out of nowhere and plows him in the face with an elbow. And that's one of the ones, Willow, where I jumped out of my seat and went, yes! It was fantastic. And I think I screamed, that's what you get. And it kicked off one hell of a bad guy.
That happened a year ago from that moment, because he was upset that guys like Daniel Bryan and all them weren't getting the attention. And then like guys like The Rock, who could just disappear and come back and automatically be the top guy again, And that's what you said. It was justified.
Yeah.
Still paying their dues like that. I watched a lot of CM Punk, and I was like, this guy cares about the business, and he is excited about the stuff that he's doing. But I think the more jaded anybody gets, the worse it is, because that ended a great. It ended a great opportunity for.
Is that
Very
no?
It's, you know what? I don't even know why we have a landline. It's
What's the landline?
No,
I didn't know that still existed. You gotta take a picture for it for like a museum.
WWE snipers calling saying shut the show down.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
I don't care about what we have to say, but
I do have to say though, if there's gonna be a big pop whenever crowds come back, if CM Punk came back, I bet you that would rival the pop that AJ Styles got at the 2016 Royal Rumble.
I will be amazed if CM Punk comes back. I mean, just the way he is talking. That's one of the guys that, like, if you bet on anybody coming back to wrestling or not, that's one of the guys that I would bet no. Like, I'd never see him coming back. Like, even coming back to, because technically he wasn't with WWE, he came back with Fox, and he even made sure that people knew that he wasn't back with WWE. He was hired by Fox to be the SmackDown after show or whatever the hell it was called at that moment. But he has said time and time again that he will never come back.
But he's also said never say never.
Yeah, the only way I see him coming back is when McMahon, if and when McMahon steps down, and you've got Stephanie and Triple H in charge more, because I think he has a certain respect to, I would hope, to Triple H at least. I don't know about Stephanie, but I think with those two in charge, you will get smaller guys getting up higher in the ranks compared to what you have even now.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, there it is. WWE Backstage. I couldn't remember the incarnation of that one at that time.
But if you think about it, like, you think about people that have gone, kind of ahead of him and left the company for reasons like that, but still ended up coming back and being okay with the stuff that happened. Like, when Brett was all, well, we'll talk about it in a few minutes, but and he ultimately left the company. Now he is doing podcasts and stuff on the network. I don't know if he is I don't think he's on the roster, but he is definitely affiliating himself with it again. And I think that, once people realize what they've got, they don't, or what they had when they were there, like the same kind of notoriety and popularity doesn't follow CM Punk unless he was with the WWE.
Right.
I see him having that same thing. So if that's something that he is yearning for or starving for, then that might be an open opportunity for him to come back. But only I think
the feud between him and McMahon is what gives him the money, though. Like him talking about the feud.
Yeah,
it's possible. Keeps things relevant, I guess.
Yeah, because one of the biggest things he said in his pipe bomb was that he didn't like how Vince held a lot of people like him down.
Well, have you ever watched the videos with the documentary and some of the other stuff that he's done? He was held back, according to him, a lot. Now, if you listen to other people talking, there's reasons for it. He was a Paul Heyman guy, and Paul Heyman was pushing him down, pushing CM Punk down everybody's throat, which, according to some people, held him back. But Punk's attitude in certain circumstances and how he's treated some people has added to it as well. So there's different sides of every story. I think WWE missed some opportunities, but I think they got it. Punk got to hit so hard and became such a big thing because he had all that, that chip on his shoulder. But once he was up there, he didn't let it go. And then part of the problem I have with Punk here and there, I love CM Punk, but he seems like he wants to be on top, the very tippy top of the roster at all times and wants to be the main event of everything. And I don't know if it's true or not. It's just from what I have seen. And that's not always the case. There's, you go from, everybody has their different spots, and you go up and down here and there a little bit by little bit. And you go down for a little bit, you fight some lower card stuff, and then you come back up. So I don't know. Some of it, I think, is his ego to an extent, and he has not. Hopefully now he's chilled it out a bit. But I even know him and Colt Cabana had a huge explosion after some legal stuff because of the podcast they did after he left WWE. And now him and Colt Cabana, who were best of friends, are supposedly not friends anymore.
Yeah, well, that's like a huge. I mean, they're both from Chicago, so that's like a huge rival there in Chicago. You just don't bring that up.
Well, but I think a lot of times you're right. Like the ego thing, because like for a long time it's like, well, you're just whining because you didn't get your way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I could see his point, but I could also be like, you know what? If you're part of a team, then you do your part. And, and you don't really complain about it because that's life.
But that was his argument, was that the team wasn't playing ball with him.
Well, yeah, that was his argument because, perspective is 100% the truth. Whatever you see is the way you feel about it. The problem with that is that he wanted to be on top, and he brought other guys into the mix. I think that he talked about them to make it look good, but really he was the one talking about how he got screwed. And I think that turned people off at some point. Like, I was a fan. I was like, yeah, he's good. But he was kind of, I just don't like people that whine. Like, pull up your big boy pants and get to business. I don't whine. I don't want to hear men whine. It's even worse.
Before we move to the next heel turn here, I recommend the horror movie that CM Punk just did.
So good.
So creepy. It's called The Girl on the Third Floor. I believe it's on Netflix.
So good.
I'll have to watch that for sure.
I looked at him for like 5 minutes and I'm like, who is this? I know this person. And then something happened. He made a face or something. I was like, that's CM Punk? Heck? But he's so good.
Yeah, it's very
so
creepy.
Good.
Let's talk about Seth Rollins turning on the Shield.
There we go.
Up to that point, everybody was made to believe it was going to be Dean Ambrose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was like so pointing to Dean Ambrose that even Dean Ambrose thought he was the one. So it was Raw. You had the Shield in the ring, and on the ramp you had Triple H, Stephanie, and Randy Orton.
Yep.
And they were coaching. They're like, come on, Dean. And you had Dean Ambrose, Reigns, and Seth had the chair. Seth swings the chair and hits Roman.
And he falls, and he hit the rope going down.
Yeah, and the look that Dean gave, like, sold the whole thing.
Priceless.
Well, and that's one of the videos I was watching. They were talking about how it worked even better because of how Reigns and Ambrose both sold it. Reigns like hit the ground like he was literally stabbed in the back and never got back up. And then you have Ambrose's mix of emotions from going shocked to, oh my God, to pissed off. And then, just going the rest of the way with it. And I always loved that with Triple H just looking at the sledgehammer too. And he's like, well, I guess we'll have to go with plan B. And then you get the whack. It was, everybody in that moment sold it so perfectly that I think if you were missing any of that into the mix, it would have lost something.
Yeah, that was definitely that. This heel turn is definitely up there in my list I would probably put this in the top 3.
I think it was definitely a good heel turn. I don't know if it would go most shocking because everybody was feeling that the Shield had hit their limit on everything that they've done. So yeah, I think it's more shocking because of it being Seth and not Ambrose, but it was very well done. So I think it would definitely be in my top 5.
Yeah.
Well, it's always either the loose cannon, which was what Dean Ambrose was, or the calculated, like, thinker. Because for me, I still watch Seth Rollins, and I'm like, just don't talk, just stop. Like, his voice just grates at me. I don't know why, but you just assume that it's going to be one of them. You just didn't realize that it's going to be Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
Well, and it built him up nicely as he ran with that architect thing for a while, and I like that mix to it. I think the only thing that went wrong was you had because Seth did an awesome job, but when it came to the whole Shield in general, was Ambrose got the crazy thing in his own music and everything like that. But I think they could have done Roman better, and he could have gotten up higher if he dropped everything of the Shield. It was almost like he was trying to live in the past or live with the Shield stuff still, because he had the vest on. He was still coming from the crowd, and even his music was the same.
Yeah.
So I think they dropped the ball on him, but I still love Ambrose's first shirt when he went out on his own, and it's Ambrose Asylum, and the number that is the number that the date that Rollins turned their back on him.
Oh yeah. And I know Reigns gets a lot of crap, but I still think the dude's a legit worker and has great matches. He's getting better on the mic, but I mean, if you look at the matches that he had with Cena and even AJ Styles, great matches.
I even think everybody agrees he's a great worker. He's amazing. He's gotten even better over the years. But one of the problems was, like I said, they didn't drop the Shield gimmick from him. I think that hurt him a lot in the beginning. And then there was this weird run where he kept losing matches, or like misstepping, or like he just wasn't winning stuff when he should be winning. But he was still supposed to be a top guy and still getting title shots and still getting this and that. And you're just going, if he's losing a lot, why does he deserve to get a title shot? Losers don't get title shots. Winners get title shots. So, and he would just get them all the time. So I think that really hurt him a lot. I hope with him staying at home through this pandemic and everything, I hope it lets him reset as a character a bit. He had some of the good stuff going when he came back from leukemia and everything, and had that going for him, which it's terrible to say, but it kind of put a softer light on him and kind of gave people reasons to root for him.
Have you seen the pictures of what he looks like?
Oh my God, he's huge. His one arm is bigger than both of my legs together, I think. I'm like, calm down, bro. But I still think, and I even think now, I think he needs a heel run. I think and I think that's what like guys like Triple H really helped them, because he had a heel run and then kind of a good guy run, and he's gone back and forth. Roman at this moment in his main roster career they were bad guys when the Shield first debuted, but that didn't last too long. But he's never been a bad guy on his own. I think he could really pull off. I saw him in NXT a couple of times where he was wearing like suits and stuff, and like almost being like a Randy Orton Triple H style, where wearing the suits and being cocky. I think he could really pull that off and branch out his character some more, and let him get a good heel run for a little while, and then go back to a good guy. And I think fans may get behind him.
Well, there was a rumor that before all this pandemic stuff, that him and The Rock were going to have a match at SummerSlam.
Right.
And I believe he was going to attack The Rock, if that's how the story was going to go. Like,
I heard that one.
So I mean, they may still hold that back, and maybe when he comes back, he does come back as a heel, or he does the face thing, but then it's
and then that night turns heel. That would be the best, and I think that would be another big time. I think like if we did this again in a year or two, that would hit the top of the list
But
because
wouldn't that be almost obvious though? Like, or I don't know.
I mean, some stuff is always obvious in wrestling, but it's somewhat better. Like if he just comes back as a heel, it won't sell it enough. If he comes back and turns on somebody, like he comes back, yeah, and then just goes and cracks somebody with something and changes a match or screws somebody over, it brings it up to a new height and kind of, I don't know, it's just something, at least in my head, it kind of just sells it. Okay, it's like, oh yeah, he's a bad guy now. Here we go. Instead of just him coming back going, oh, well, you didn't like me before, and you guys booed me all the time, and it sucked. It's like, no, he comes back and beats the hell out of somebody, and we're off to the races.
So would you consider that kind of a redemption if someone does that, where they turn heel because they were so well hated?
It's, I don't know if redemption's the right word. I always love when people turn on. Like even The Rock back when he had the "Die Rocky Die" chants, and that's what ended up creating The Rock, because they were already booing him, so might as well make him a bad guy. And then he starts referring to himself as The Rock and just shitting on all the people. Yeah, and he does that.
When he joined the Nation, he was a heel against the heels.
Yep.
So like, because the Nation was a group led by Farouk, and they were all heels. So The Rock was a heel, but he was a heel against them because he wanted to take over Nation of Domination, and he kicked Farouk out.
Yep.
Yeah. I think part of what happened, like everybody talks about how Roman Reigns got shoved down everybody's throat, and I can see how that's the case because he did win matches or did lose matches and get title shots a lot.
Yeah. But they said the same thing about Hogan and Cena as well, but they were still selling tickets.
But the draw, like they're Roman Reigns still sells a lot of t-shirts, and so does John Cena. So they must be doing something right. Like they're selling merchandise. So people are coming to see them.
Yeah, they're coming to boo him.
I have a Roman Reigns t-shirt. I am not. As soon as you see the YouTube video of him singing "I'm a Little Teapot" with his daughter, I'm sorry, I can't. Like for me, that heel turn is going to be devastating because I like him, but it's going to be like, what can he do? Like I want to see more. Like
I wanted. There was rumors going around that he was going to turn heel, and then he was going to have a faction with the Authors of Pain, and then maybe somebody else. I'm like, please, that would be. You could just have them so dominant because you have three giant guys, and you keep the Authors of Pain a little bit more, get them nicer suits, but kind of still like the bodyguard type style, and then you got Roman in the suit. It could be like this weird version of Evolution a little bit. And I think it would have been, I think the Authors of Pain would have done a lot better than what they have been now. I don't even know if they're active at the moment. I haven't seen them on anything.
Aren't they with Seth Rollins?
No, not anymore. He had them for a little bit, but that didn't last very long.
Because I know Buddy Murphy is still with Seth.
Yeah, Buddy Murphy's with Seth. So I don't know if they're out on their own, or like they're just sitting out because of Corona or no storyline. Can't remember what it is, because that was before Seth Rollins became Jesus.
The Monday Night Messiah.
Well, he was always kind of Jesus. He was called the CrossFit Jesus. That was his nickname.
True.
Okay, well there's the problem right there. Is anytime you elevate yourself to Jesus-like status, maybe that's my problem with him.
He never called himself the CrossFit Jesus, all because he looked like Jesus with the beard and all that, and his fans, because he would do CrossFit, so they would call him the CrossFit Jesus. But anyways,
Hey, what's worse, him basically being Jesus or CM Punk being the Antichrist? Which was really fun to watch CM Punk. But yeah, he talks about some of those times where he was, the real bad heel and doing the what was it, the Sober Society, or what the hell was it?
Straight Edge Society.
Straight Edge Society. Sober Society does not roll off the tongue as well.
Yeah. So, you guys want to talk about Daniel Bryan a little bit?
Yeah, this one, Daniel Bryan's heel turn was surprising. This is one of the guys that I did not want to see as a bad guy. He did a pretty good job. There's always this fine line for me for the whiny, annoying heels. They're very needed in WWE. But there's this fine line that you walk, and I couldn't believe his bad guy turn. It was just like, you're doing this because it's needed. There needs to be some heels, and he's just, he's filling the spot. But I just, save the planet and blah, blah, blah. I just could never get into it. It was a cool turn when he did turn, and it was very surprising because I actually just watched it again in one of the videos, and I'm like, oh yeah, he did turn in the middle of a match, but
I just felt like it was a little over the top crazy. Like, it made him sound like a nut job.
Like, oh yeah, he was like, he turned the belt really into like,
it's wood and it's all organic, and I'm like, oh my god, you're like my worst nightmare.
I just had to bring up what Greg said. This would be kind of epic.
Oh yeah.
I think it's because people would, I don't know.
Yeah, if Roman and the Usos became a team and turned on The Rock, it just would be interesting on what crowd they have. Because depending on where you go, it seems like before we lost crowds and The Rock made a couple appearances here and there, he was getting cheered. But there was a couple of times here and there that he's come back and he wasn't getting cheered as much. Like when he was basically pulling the Brock Lesnar and being a part-time wrestler, part-time champion to build up with Cena, I don't think he was as liked. I don't think him or Cena were liked at that time. So it'd be, I think right now it would work because The Rock is so loved at the moment. But yeah, I think that would be an epic moment to turn both the Usos and Roman, because they're turning on family.
Especially if they do it on like The Rock's home turf or something like that.
Well,
yeah.
Josh says makes a good point. It depends on the city. Like certain crowds, like Boston, Brooklyn, Chicago, those crowds. I mean, if you ever see a pay-per-view, they get loud. Even Montreal.
And I think like it depends on who's on the card too, because if you got a hometown hero, like if you're like Cena.
Yeah, Miami would be the place, but that would be kind of on the nose, I think.
I think that, but see, even here in Florida, does he still have the same pull that he had before? Like,
but everybody loves The Rock. That's the thing, though. Like, everybody's happy he bought the XFL.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, Rock outside of the ring and Rock in the ring are manifestations of the same personality, but they're different people. Like, you can admire Dwayne Johnson, but you could also, despise The Rock.
Or you don't like him at certain times. Like, I went to the WrestleMania where him and Cena were facing off down in Miami, and like, I didn't want to see that match. Like, I was there for all the other matches and I stuck around for that one, but like, we got the one, and then you go for the following year they faced for the title. We didn't need that. And a lot of people were booing both of them because that was a time where a lot of people were being held back on the card, and we thought that we could have a way better Mania main event.
Yeah. So back on the topic of Daniel Bryan, you were saying, Josh?
Kids all stole the cookies. Sorry.
About how the whole whiny thing, like, you don't really.
Yeah, because. And I'm trying to think of who Edge was always on a borderline sometimes, depending on which heel he was. There were certain times where he would run away from fights and everything and things like that, but he was still like, you viewed him as a threat. I've never been a fan of the heel, and I know it sells more and certain people like them more, but I hate the ones that kind of run away all the time and whine and bitch. But they serve their purpose. You annoy them, you boo them, and all that good stuff. But yeah, Daniel Bryan as a heel, he's one of those people that I just always see as a good guy. I don't see him as a heel. He doesn't turn in like because Triple H. I'm trying to think of some other guy, Chris Jericho. Like Triple H and Chris Jericho, you get them both perfectly as either or. They play heel, they play babyface very well, and you get behind them either way, or you hate them when they're a heel. But Daniel Bryan he got a lot of boos and he got a lot of hate for the time, and he was good heel at that moment because I don't think we had many at that time, but he just wasn't doing it for me.
Yeah, and when he turned heel, it was when he was going against Styles, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I remember the first time that they thought he was going to do the heel when he aligned himself sort of with Bray Wyatt, which we all found out that it was a ruse to get in with the Wyatt family and take them apart from the inside.
Right. I think I just thought about it too. I think the other thing that kind of ruined Daniel Bryan's heel turn was it wasn't too long after he came back from being on the shelf forever. Came back from the injury. And when they did it, I'm like, no, I'm not ready to boo him. I want to support him and cheer for him because he's finally back after being gone for 3 years or so. Like we thought we would never see him again, and now you want me to go and boo him? Are you insane?
Right. And I'm looking at this question here. Face or heel?
I think heel.
Yeah.
His run in TNA and Impact as a heel was amazing. His run he's had rough runs in WWE.
His run in ROH was pretty decent.
Yeah. He's a really good on the mic guy when he's a heel. And some of the stuff, like his last good run of a heel before an injury, like just the way he was articulating things, and you're just like half the time I kind of didn't understand what he was talking about, but it was just so dark and twisted and trying to just rough people up that it was I think I like him as a heel more. I always cheer for him. I don't care what he is. I always cheer for Samoa Joe because he's just a badass.
Yeah. There's a few other heel turns that kind of stick out. Nakamura turning on AJ Styles.
Yeah. I think that one just ruined. Well, the match, the WrestleMania match, I didn't think was the greatest either. I didn't really care when he turned. I don't know why. I'm like, maybe it's because you don't really know what he's doing half the time, anyways, because he doesn't have the greatest English, which I don't either. But he's always kind of hard to read, and he's always kind of off. So like when he turned heel, I'm like, okay, there we go. He's a bad guy now.
Yeah. A friend of mine who actually knows him personally says that his English is better than made out to be.
Who?
Oh, okay.
Nakamura, when he turned on AJ Styles.
Now I will say Nakamura got better music when he turned heel.
Oh yeah.
When they introduced the beginning of his music, and they got more of the guitar, and like they did that really well. But yeah, and like I don't think his heel turn really turned into much. He still didn't win the title. As far as I could, he didn't win the title. So I guess he was a good heel for AJ. But then they didn't do much afterwards. And I think that's some of the problems with some of the heel turns is they would be bigger or more monumental if they turned into something afterwards. And some of these just don't. And you're like, okay, there it was. The one moment's really cool, but the rest is meh.
Yeah. And then, there was like some heel turns that just didn't work at all. Like, I won't even talk about why. I'll just mention it. In 2000, Goldberg didn't work.
Right.
I mean, he aligned himself with Vince Russo, and it didn't work. But that was WCW anyways.
Now, do you guys enjoy the soap opera aspect of wrestling with all the weird storylines? There was a lot of interesting ones back in the from like 97 to 2000. There was.
I would get really upset when they mess with somebody's kids or when they mess with somebody's marriage. So I always get really upset about that. I don't know why. Probably because it's some deep held belief that you shouldn't do that, but something should be sacred. But
I actually see this happening.
I do too. But like this run with Randy Orton and Edge, the conversations that he had with Beth Phoenix in the ring, like stuff like that, I think is kind of, you can tell it's phony because you know that they're friends and that you know the way things are going, it just doesn't feel as authentic as some of the other stuff.
What about when Samoa Joe and AJ Styles had that thing and he was talking about to AJ's daughter saying, "Oh, I'm your daddy now." And
that was weird. That was like borderline creepy.
Or let's go back even further. Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio fighting over what's his son's name?
Damien.
Damien, yeah. They even had that ladder match with the papers. Whoever gets the paper, which
was a great match.
Yeah.
I get it. It's kind of been a thing. Let's go for weird, creepy.
I mean, there was even like the Hulk Hogan and Macho Man fight between one of the ladies.
Yeah, that was Miss Elizabeth, and that was actually that topped a lot of lists that I watched on social media because number one, you had such a buildup of the Mega Powers working together. That was like a year or so, and then they would slowly put in things here and there. This is that long buildup, long burn that we don't get anymore because the way the world works, where we want instant stuff, so you don't get these long builds anymore. But that was fantastic. The payoffs, the turn was fantastic. The match at the end is amazing. I've always felt some matches need the drama. Some matches need stuff in the background to build it up just a little bit more.
Yeah.
I always missed. There was some stuff in the Attitude Era where like people went to like a wrestler would go to another wrestler's house or and they would fight through the house, or like there was just that personal things that just build that match a little bit more. And when you see it in the vignettes, like the one I can remember the most, but the match actually wasn't that great, was Randy Orton versus Triple H at one of the main the WrestleManias for the WWE title. And the buildup was just so old school. And there was like Randy Orton was hiding at his home with his wife, and they're sitting there, and you go through, and Triple H is going to show up to the house. Triple H kicks in the door at the last part of Raw and goes after him, and then they go and fight all through the house, and Triple H throws Randy Orton out the window. That's the stuff that like I've missed through old wrestling stuff, and that's but it just depends on the feud, because like Nicole says, some stuff is just too far and kind of creepy. Other stuff, it's like, this is perfect and hitting the mark.
Yeah, and
but you expect it from Randy Orton too. Like you expect kind of that like lying in wait kind of thing from this movie that he is personified, and I think that there's a difference there. Like there are just some creepy aspects to some of the other stuff. Like when you get kids involved and I don't know. Like that's too far for me, but I guess a lot of other people don't get bothered by it.
Well, that's like when Orton was going heel, and I think it was still that feud with Triple H. It kind of started with Triple H going after Orton going after the McMahon family, and like he punted Vince in the head. I think he got Shane and Stephanie, and like he had Triple H, I think with Stephanie handcuffed to the ring and stuff, and that just it built so much to that match. And then I was actually disappointed after the Mania match because you didn't feel like you had a payoff at the end.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think. There was one with
that whole thing with Randy Orton, Triple H, though, that started when Evolution, even though they were heel, they went heel on Randy Orton after he won.
Right. Yeah, and they had some good matches then, and then it kind of died down. And that's one of those ones that you can go back to every so often and bring it fuel back up. And all it takes is one little spark, and that feud is fueled back. There's just certain people that feud perfectly against each other, and you want to see more and more and more with it. One of the creepy ones that I'm thinking of is in TNA when AJ was accused of cheating on his wife with some girl. That was like the dumbest shit. I'm like, why is, and I think he's even come out on some podcasts and he's like, I went with it because it was, for the show and doing what being best for business. But he's like, that was just dumb.
Yeah, because if you know AJ, he's like, that's way out of his character. Like
It's funny. It's like poster child for, which I think makes his heel turn that much weirder. Just for me, like I've seen him with his kids and his wife, and I'm like,
when he's just being a cocky asshole and acting as the best in the business, and the what was the face that made the place, or the champ that runs the camp, or whatever he was doing, that was good. That was a good bad guy AJ. The Lone Wolf was a good one too. But yeah, when he's just acting as the best he can be, and just being, I'm the best wrestler, I'm the best that's the good AJ stuff. The weird, I cheated on my wife and shit like that. That's like, you're missing a mark with him, because everybody knows he's the best, but he becomes a bad guy on it when he's not humble about it. And that's that's the difference between the heel and the face. The face is just like, yay, I beat that guy. Good for me. I won the championship. And the heel's like, you're damn right I beat him.
yeah.
So before we hop into
that's it.
Shocking heel turn of all time, I'm going to ask you first, Josh. What would be the most shocking heel turn to you in real life out of your circle of friends?
I don't know.
Or have you like back in your school days, like did you have like a heel turn? Like
yeah, I've had a good few friends. It's kind of my why I don't trust a ton of people, is I have had quite a few different friends throughout different lifetimes, screw me over and turn their backs on me and stuff. So yeah, I'm quite familiar with it. And yeah, it's never fun in real life. I prefer the wrestling ones, because and you know what's more messed up, because it's going to happen. And this is probably going to make me a dickhead, but everybody knows I am anyways. The people turning heel on me isn't the bad thing. The fact that I can't beat the crap out of them afterwards, that's where I have a problem with it. It's like, fine, you want to be an a-hole, you want to be a dickhead and screw me over, fine. But what I could do to you and what I could imagine doing to you should frighten the shit out of you. And when I can't say that to people, and I can't do things to people to make sure that it doesn't happen again, and they get to keep their kneecaps and things, that sucks. Because in WWE, somebody goes and turns on me in WWE, I can beat the hell out of them with a steel chair, and nobody blinks an eye. That's just a typical Monday night. But in real life, you get arrested for like manslaughter and stuff. So yeah.
So I'm guessing if you were a wrestler, you would definitely be a heel.
I don't know. I feel like I'd be more of like a Stone Cold, that in between. Because I always love the ride the line guys, because there are times where, I have a lot of good morals and a lot of, I try to do the best for them. Yeah. But I also, certain people need a super kick to the face, and it doesn't matter when or how. There's just certain people, you just want to super kick them. And I feel like I would just ride that line perfectly all the way through my WWE career as much as possible. Because the other thing too is that the non-fun thing with being a babyface is you have to watch what you say. There's a very thin line that, and a lot of wrestlers that have hit both ones and had good stuff in both runs, is you have to watch what you say when you're a babyface, because you can't really, you got to watch even how you go and say, oh, I'm going to beat up this guy at WrestleMania. You have to watch it. And I don't like watching what I say. I love saying what I want to and all that stuff. So, I'd definitely be a tweener.
So Mike has a question for you, Josh. He wants to know,
Yes.
do you stream on Twitch?
I think I do. I just started trying to switch. I have a Twitch. So you can follow all my stuff on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Twitch by searching J Bauer Art, all one word, JBAUER Art. And you should be able to find everything. I just started trying to stream on Twitch Tuesday night for my Back Talk with Bauer episode. And I don't know if it actually worked or not. I'll have to test again this coming, because there's like no video sitting there now from this past week's episode. So I don't know if I did something wrong. It said it went live, but I don't really know.
So we've come to.
How come you don't ask everybody else?
Well,
I see Willow as a heel. She's got those heel eyes.
You know what? It's funny. Several of my friends who are part of the wrestling group, I was actually helping out. When I was really hoping that he was going to be on the show. One of my friends owns Primos Collectibles here in Winnipeg, and he had a huge show on our local cable access channel. And we were actually, a bunch of us got together and helped him produce this whole thing. Like, I was camera girl. I helped him out, set everything up. I even worked the door to take cash from people to watch the show. And it was an interesting experience to be part of all that. And I remember asking one of my friends, I'm like, do you need arm candy? I can always be the girl that walks with you to the ring, and never had that chance. But I would always definitely be up for being the arm candy for any of my wrestler friends.
okay.
I don't know how to wrestle. I wish I could.
Well, the thing is, you don't have to be a wrestler to be a heel. I mean, you could be a manager. I mean,
Paul Heyman. One of the best heel Mike guy managers that I can think of. And Bobby Heenan wrestled, didn't he?
Well, Bobby Heenan started out as a wrestler, and then he retired from in-ring and was manager. And I was gonna say, if anybody rivals Paul E, it's Heenan.
Yeah.
They both love the business, and they were Heenan, of course, passed away a few years ago, but very smart man. He loved the business and knew everything in and out.
Well, and Heenan is so amazing with just promos alone, but when he's a heel doing Brock Lesnar's stuff and being the advocate for the Beast, he can make you care for the dumbest match in wrestling history just by talking about it. And you're just going, like, I've been watching an episode and I'm like, I'm not feeling this pay-per-view. I'm not feeling the matches. And then Paul Heyman comes out and just does this 10-minute promo of why you should give a crap about this match and how Brock Lesnar is going to do this and this and this. And, we don't even care if you watch because we're still going to win anyways. And I'm like, he did it again.
So I'm going to ask you then, since you said, why not ask everybody, would you be a heel or a face? I already know the answer, but what is it?
I see Nicole as a face.
I could, but see, I think I could live on both sides of it. And so what you said is very true, because I can let it rip. Like, don't piss me off.
Ooh, manipulator.
But I have a mouth, and yes, I can definitely manipulate people, but I also have that like ability to kind of like see where I can get the best, like the best out of it. So like I see both perspectives, but I can also like weasel my way into getting what I want. So
see, Nicole would be, she would walk in, she would be like one of those heels that just jump from like guy to guy to make sure, like, so she would come in with this guy that may be going for, or may have the championship, but by the end of the match, the other guy has the championship and she's with him now because she hit the other guy with the ring bell.
See, and then there's me. I'd probably end up becoming like the Hurricane, where it's just a random character that comes on just in a superhero outfit.
now see, like there's that line between becoming whiny. Like I liked Bailey when she first turned heel, like when it was first that like I'm gonna reinvent myself. And now I'm just like, oh my, shut up.
She was, yeah, she started off a dark heel and just the anger and the hate and the total opposite of what she was. And now I think it's still good for her. And she's apparently one of the top people right now with having both titles. But she's gone into that, what's the word I'm looking for? Just that real braggy, and that I'm the best and things like that. And sometimes that rubs people the wrong way. Either way it works, but yeah, I always revert to like Triple H's bad guy status most of the time, because he was a bad guy, but he would hurt people and he would beat up people. He didn't very rarely ran away from a fight. So that's like where Bailey is right now. She's got a lot of the talk and I'm the best. But I prefer emo dark Bailey.
Well, and then she has Sasha there, which helped her in the last couple matches.
I'm waiting for Sasha to turn. But my whole thing is like the articulation of a female heel has to be different because of the way we are.
Right.
The fact that yes, she is good, but she's doing that whole like I'm the best, and then people are fawning all over like her girl group that's all like, oh, but she's my best friend, because that's how women are, and which is why I have.
Thank you. That's okay.
But my point being that you wait for the ultimate screw job to come from one of those followers,
right?
I'm waiting for things to be like, all right.
Now the question is if Sasha actually goes to a face, because just her character alone, I don't see her as a face. Like they've done it like once for a little bit, but I didn't believe her face. I think she's one of the ones that have always been a better heel.
Yeah. Off like
when she doesn't like her fans. She doesn't like people. Like I've heard so many things of her, like not really caring about the fan. And now I don't know if it's true. It's all, you hear rumors and dirt sheet stuff, but I've heard a lot of negative things with her and her fans that, and just like, if she's not at an official meet and greet or not at something, she doesn't care about the fans and walks away from them a lot. So that kind of fits into that heel thing. So I don't know if it's true or not, but I really just, as Mike says, keep her heel. I think now she could just be a different heel than Bailey. And I could see Sasha being a badass heel where she beats the hell out of everybody. And then you keep Bailey the whiny, and scapegoating of everything heel.
Yeah.
Just that's the way I see Sasha, in general, like because she's like that holier than thou. Like I'm so.
Yeah, I think right now in the business, the best female heel is the Queen of Spades.
Yeah, but they lost the mark with her. She should have won at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Or was it WrestleMania? Yeah, WrestleMania. She lost a lot of credit to a lot of people after they built her up so much and then she doesn't win at WrestleMania. You're like, come on.
Yeah, you want to know who was a good heel? Not last year. Well, I guess the beginning of last year, and then 2018 was Baron Corbin. He was the top. I want to say he was the top heel in WWE.
Yeah.
But not so much this year, but last year, probably the best heel in the business was MJF.
Oh yeah. He doesn't know when to turn it off. and it got him into some trouble here and there. But yeah, he's definitely been the most talked about heel in all the social media stuff. I mean, he would pop up for a good while last year. Every week or so, there was something of him either flipping a kid off at a signing or not doing this or doing this to somebody. He was everywhere.
Yeah, and that whole story, and he's young. He's what, like 24, 25 years old.
Yeah.
He's
Who are you talking about?
MJF. He's in AEW. He came from the Indies. No, keep an eye on him. He's gonna be a major star. I'm telling you right now.
I told you I don't watch AEW.
You don't have to watch AEW. Just remember the name. That's what I'm saying.
I hate Matthew Riddle too.
Matt Riddle?
Yes.
Let's not talk about him.
I just punch him in the fucking. See? Again, this is why I don't think I could be a babyface. You should be PG, and what am I doing? I'm dropping the F-bomb.
Hey, at least it was you and not me. I usually am the one that causes trouble on people's shows. So
no, but MJF is definitely going to be a major star somewhere.
I enjoy watching the NXT women so much more than like Rhea Ripley. I don't know if she's a heel or a face, but
she's like Steve Austin.
I just
she's kind of like Steve Austin.
Like that.
I don't like the blonde hair now, though. Maybe I'll get used to it, but I don't know. It changed it up a bit. Maybe if she's going more to like the blonde will be a heel or something, that would work. But it like kind of disappears on her, so it's a little weird looking. I like the black hair though, but I'm glad she's back, and I'm hoping she gets another good run. And she's been doing a fantastic job in NXT.
But I do like what's her name?
I love what's her name. I have her shirt too. What's her name?
Damn it!
I'll let you think about
the
it.
Southern Belle. What is her name? Lacey.
Oh, Lacey Evans.
I like Lacey Evans. I think I could pull that off, but I don't think she's a. I don't know if she's a heel or a face.
Well, she was a heel, but she's
I think she's the face now.
So,
how do you guys feel about Ronda Rousey wrestling?
I think she needed a mouthpiece for her. I don't think she should have done her own talking. I love Ronda Rousey. I have a love-hate relationship with her. There were some parts that were really cool with her coming in. I think she did some really cool stuff for the women's movement and women's wrestling. There was just certain quirks with her here and there. Like, I don't think she should have talked for herself. It never was believable.
With Paul E. Heyman.
Yeah, she needed a Paul Heyman. I wish they would have done that for her because I think that would have been even better. And the heel, that was another person where the heel turn wasn't very believable. And then I can't stand her shorts. If you watch a match of hers, 90% of her match is fixing her damn shorts. And it drives me insane. Like every move, fix, move, fix, move. Just duct tape them to you. I don't care. But it just was so distracting in her matches. I'm like, wear pants, something. Staple them to your leg. I don't care. But if you fix your shorts one more time, I'm going to lose it.
Well, I'm about to be a guy here, but isn't most of the women matches distracting?
No, there have been. I mean, the four NXT, the four horsewomen have put on some amazing matches. Sasha, man, I'm having trouble talking. Sasha Banks, what is it? Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Bayley have put on some fantastic matches between NXT and WWE, and those four are really the ones that changed women's wrestling in the last good few years and brought that women's movement forward. With Ronda, she helped to an extent and hurt in others. And between her, I don't know who told her eye makeup was good, but her weird black swan shit, between that and her shorts not staying in place, it really, like, I would be getting into a match and she would just do something, and she was getting better in the matches too. Like, you could, if you watch her first match with WWE and like her last couple matches, there was a huge improvement. And I would really give it to her. She was doing some really cool stuff. She was taking care of people more. That kind of goes back to the earlier part of this conversation. She was learning to take care of people, to keep them safe, doing moves properly. And then she would do a bunch of that and then pull her damn shorts back down. And it's like, damn it, Rhonda.
I think, like, as far as, like, if you follow anybody on social media, I don't know why I can't talk today. I sound like a stuttering idiot. But like, I follow Nia Jax, and there is a lot of like body positive stuff that she talks about. And the fact that, I mean, she's a beast. Like, she's enormous, like just sheer size of like tall. She's huge.
Right.
But when you see her like just in regular clothes, not in her ring attire, she doesn't look like that. But like when she puts on ring attire, for some reason, she looks like a force to be reckoned with. And she's kind of like that, like, you know, devil doesn't care. Like, when she goes out on the ring, she goes out to hurt people. And
she does.
and so when that's kind of like, she's kind of like the China of now. Like, she could definitely hold her own with the men and, you know, take people out. She's not a dainty, you know, frou-frou little girl. Like, she's amazing. But she's also beautiful. And she's also, you know, like this important, empowering aspect for most of us who don't feel like we fit into the world that we see on a daily basis. Like, none of us look like Dakota Kai. Nobody looks like, you know, like, I don't look like, I don't know.
I thought I looked like Dakota Kai. What the hell? I got the eyes.
You look good.
You know. I'm just, and I say Dakota Kai because they all kind of fit that, like, there's a certain, that slender build. They're not necessarily athletic looking. I don't, like, Charlotte Flair and Lacey Evans are probably the more athletic looking women. Like, most of them seem to be very dainty.
And then then there's Bailey with the bubble butt.
Yeah, Bailey does have good butt. But
all the squats they do.
She's still very thin. Like, she's still very, like, what could you possibly break? Like, I don't. Sonya Deville, she's kind of scary too.
Well, she came from
Sonya Deville's a little scary. There's times where she's very pretty, then there's other times she's got a wicked look in her eye, and I'm like, I don't want to be murdered today, thank you.
She's a little freaky. But I think that's kind of important, is that we see all these girls. Like, as a matter of fact, I actually had asked Brian, I'm like, was Charlotte Flair born a woman? And Brian's like, yes. And I'm like, okay, just checking.
Charlotte's very interesting. There's some times where she just looks absolutely gorgeous, very feminine and everything like that. And then there's certain times where she looks, and I don't say in a bad way, she just looks a little bit more manly and masculine. And it's really weird. I don't know what changes. I can't figure it out. But there's, like, even my wife Kayla will be watching with me sometimes. And there'll be some times where she goes, ooh, Charlotte's looking a little rough. And then other times Charlotte's look amazing. And you're just like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's makeup, if it's outfits, if it's a mix of everything. But I don't know.
Like, her carriage is so big. I'm just like, okay, I know those aren't real. Like, I know these aren't real, but like this, right? Like that.
She has
below her.
She has a pack. I mean,
that, like, she just doesn't look anatomically correct.
Which in 2 weeks we'll talk more about the women, because we're talking about women.
Just doesn't look anatomically correct. Anyways, my point. But like, I am personally enjoying the Japanese women, like Asuka and Shirai.
Yeah,
Io Shirai. I mean, they're kind of reminiscent of the cruiserweights, you know, like the high flying crazy stuff.
Yeah.
It could be lighting. Yeah, that's the only problem.
You might be right though. It might, at least with Charlotte, it could really be lighting because it could catch different shadows on her and make her look a little bit more rougher here and there. So I definitely could see it.
Yeah.
You put too much light on me, it's terrifying. So I think we're almost to that 2-hour mark. Did you want to get back to the last couple?
Yeah, we're gonna actually hop into the most shocking. What happened in '96, and that was Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
Yeah. You have Kevin Nash and Scott Hall saying that they have a mystery partner, and they go out there in their match against Savage and was it Lex Luger and Sting, I believe.
I think so.
And so they're out there, and I think Luger was on the outside of the ring, like they hurt him, and they were beating up Savage, and then all of a sudden, here comes Hulk Hogan. The crowd goes crazy, and Scott Hall and Kevin Nash act all scared and get out of the ring, and he's going in there like he's going to help Savage. Leg drop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then he comes out in red, though. Didn't he come out in red?
Yeah, he came out in
he came out in his full colors. It was the greatest. You're never going to match this heel turn and the surprise of it. And you had a guy that was such a good guy, and the eat your vitamins, say your prayers guy, and all that stuff come out and turn on what was like, one of his good friends, best friends, and just leg drops him and then shits on the crowd that's there.
Yeah, he was a babyface since 1984.
Yeah. The only time you would get anything close to this, and I don't even think it would still be close to this because people want it so much, is a Cena turn. But people are dying for that. Back at this time, the crowds were a little bit different, so not many people wanted to see a Hogan turn. And never thought they would see a Hogan turn. So when he comes out and drops it, and then the next week he starts wearing the all black, and he progressed it very nicely too. He starts adding more to it and getting more and more extravagant and getting more and more into the heel turn. That was the best thing that Hulk Hogan could ever have done for his career. Not only his career, but wrestling in general. Because that was where WCW started taking over and WWE kind of were taking notice going, shit, we need to change some stuff. Yeah, I mean, it changed. That one leg drop, that one moment changed the trajectory of wrestling from that time forward. Right. And you did not get the real stuff, because that was the cool thing with even just Nash and Hall coming in. They were being them. They used their names. They weren't characters. They weren't Razor Ramon and Diesel. They were being real people, and you really thought some WWE guys were coming and taking over. And then they get Hulk into the mix, and they take your favorite guy that was your childhood hero and turn them bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I remember the crowd just throwing all that. Like, they were throwing their food. They were throwing their
so much garbage into the ring.
Well, and that's what you were talking about, me and Gene, and his response to that.
Yeah, he basically called Hogan trash. He's like, you're just like a piece of all this stuff in the ring.
Yep. Well, and they had trash thrown at them for a while after that, because they stayed bad guys for a while, and then the crowd started changing and started to realize how cool the NWO was, and it was cool to cheer for them and cheer for the bad guys, right? And that was, I think, the NWO and Hulk Hogan changed on how bad guys were too. They weren't these over dramatic weird things that WWE was making. They were real life bad guys, and they were just taking over, wearing all black and smoking cigars and drinking and beating the hell out of everybody.
Right. And that was also, the start of I mean, even though WCW was winning, the backstage was dying.
Right.
You had people like Eddie Guerrero that were upset. Jericho was upset. Dean Malenko. All these people were fed up with what was going on, and that's why they all jumped ship. And that's what WCW's greatest creation, the NWO, was also their downfall in my eyes.
Yeah. And that's some of the problems. And that, I mean, if you want to learn a really cool stuff about how WCW was ran and how NWO was created and different things like that, if you check out Eric Bischoff's podcast, 83 Weeks, he tells some really cool story, behind the scenes stories and different things to here and there of how even Hogan got involved and came up with the how they brought him into NWO and, where they were going with it and how it was slowly built up. And they were trying, it took them a while to figure out who was going to be that third man because they announced it, but it wasn't an automatic thing of who they were going to make it. And they really had to talk Hogan into it because Hogan was kind of scared to change, but then he was also realizing that he had to change with the times because nobody cared. A lot of the people that grew up with him were now older and didn't want to say their prayers and eat their vitamins and that BS. They weren't into that anymore. And the red and yellow was dead. So he went black and white. And then the cool thing too was it was such a big change for him to go heel. And then it was even another revamp to go good and to go as a good guy. Because he was supposed to be the heel against The Rock at WrestleMania 20. He was supposed to be a bad guy. And they put on such an amazing match and they showed the respect for each other and all that eventually you got the red and yellow back because it was such a big deal.
Yeah, because the next night on Raw, was it Hall and Nash turned on him?
Yep.
Yeah. And then I think it was The Rock that came out and made the save, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. There's a lot of people commenting of different people that could have been the third guy. Eric talks about it a lot. There was a couple other people just thrown around, but as far as I think of, there was a very short list for the third guy, and a lot of it was Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
There's actually one. You want to do one more of a heel turn?
I was going to add just to this NWO story, the Hogan turn.
Yeah.
When Shawn Michaels was he was in a actual contract dispute with Vince and WWF. He didn't know if he was going to resign.
Right.
Nash tried to get him over, and I don't remember the pay-per-view that WWE was doing, but there was a guy that came out with a baseball bat and had a black mask on. It was supposed to be Shawn Michaels. I was trying to remember who they were fighting. I don't remember. It was one of the other top WCW guys, but they were trying to bring Shawn Michaels over to join them. And that was something. He decided to not do it. So they made that guy somebody else.
Would have been really interesting to see the impact that he would have had in WCW and how it would have changed history. There's WWE had some other cool videos of I don't know if it was like a what if thing or something like that, but they have one if Undertaker went to WCW, and they have a bunch of backstage people talking about how it could have impacted, who he would have faced, and how things would have how things could have changed. And it's just like a lot of theories and everything like that, but there was that's a really cool one to check out on the network.
Yeah, and that's something that WWE themselves created. I did see that. It was like a 10-minute video or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But is there another heel change that you?
There's one more, and this is one of those ones where it's actually people viewed it as justified. It was when Chris Jericho turned on Shawn Michaels and threw him into the Titan or to the TV, the Jericho-tron or whatever he called. I actually remember that one, and so it started building up at WrestleMania, I believe, or it was. I want to say it was WrestleMania. It was a big pay-per-view, and it wasn't WrestleMania. It was Shawn facing Batista for the championship, and Chris Jericho was the ref.
Yeah.
And Shawn faked a leg injury, a knee injury, and hit Batista, and I think won the title, but basically Shawn faked an injury, won the match, and Jericho, everybody found out because everybody saw it, and Jericho was pissed and called out Shawn on it. And Shawn's like, "Oh no, it's actually hurt. He's actually hurt," and then goes and Sweet Chin Music's Jericho in the face. So the next week on Raw, they have the highlight reel with Jericho, and they're talking back and forth. Jericho gets pissed and grabs Shawn and throws him into the little TV, the Jerichotron. And first off, that throwing him into the TV, that was another one of those moments where I'm like, oh shit. And because just so much breaks off of it, and there's just one wrong move. I actually thought Shawn may have gotten something in his eye because they played it off so well, and it just looks so messed up.
Yeah.
But it was one of those ones that Jericho got pissed because the fans were all still cheering for Shawn and booing him. And you're just like, yeah, I don't blame him throwing him in the TV. I'd be pissed too.
Yeah. Well,
and that was definitely a shocking moment too.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this last one then. Another Shawn Michaels one. The barbershop.
I love that kick.
Man, well, you had the whole Marty Jannetty, thought, he was trying to keep the Rockers together, and so he called Shawn Michaels out on the barbershop, and this was kind of shocking because, Shawn's like, we're okay, and they hugged it out and shook hands, and then he super kicked him.
Yep. Yeah. That's why I love the super kick so much.
Oh yeah. Not only did he super kick him, he threw him through the glass window. This is one of those. This was at the time that you didn't really get, heel turns like this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, before this, it was probably Andre the Giant on Piper's Pit, but this was the start when they started really doing storylines. And this was one of the first heel turns that I really, really remember watching on TV.
Well, and I think this still, even to this day, people look back onto that one, and that's when a team splits, they're always reference to the Rockers and that kick on the barbershop. I mean, even when we talked about earlier, Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, they referenced Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty. And anytime a tag team splits up, because you now see, looking back over the years, that ignited Shawn Michaels' singles career, and he became who Shawn Michaels is now, and now we see where Marty Jannetty is. But, Marty Jannetty never took off. So there's always been that little stigma with tag team things when they split up. There's always the guy that, hits the roster high, and then there's the guy that goes into obscurity. And it really kind of started with that kick and that feud.
Yeah. I'm looking at the comment that Mike said, and I don't really want to get into that whole mess right there. You can hit me up later on Facebook, and we can talk about that.
You'll have to tell me about it because I wasn't following it.
Things are depressing as enough in this world. Let's not chat about that. Hopefully it was a joke, but yeah.
So before I let you go, Josh, I do want to know if you have any cool things coming up in the pipeline.
Oh man. So mostly I'm working on graphic design stuff. So if you're a upcoming podcast, you're a local business, if you need any kind of graphic design stuff, I'm messing with. I've done a bunch of podcast logos and different things like that. I can do social media stuff for you, like creating some images for social media. I've even started to dabble with intro videos for different, whatever you got. You can go and check out my all my videos. I've been putting the intros into mine, so please go check those out. I do have a week from today is HarleyCon 2020. It'll be August 15th. It starts at 11 a.m. and goes till midnight. I am working with the amazing Harley Quinn Arts, Cosplay, and Crafts, and it is a big online convention. It's free to watch right here on Facebook. All you have to do is go to the event page, hit the reminder button, and you'll be able to find the stream. And there is tons of stuff. I'm going to be on, I know for sure 3 times. I may have been talked into a 4th time. But I will be on for the artist panel at noon with a few other really talented artists. Then at 3 p.m., I'm doing a special episode of my Back Talk with Bauer podcast with totally blanking on the cosplayer's name. I apologize, but a really cool cosplayer that Amelia has hooked me up with. We're going to be chatting all things cosplay and her world of cosplay. I believe at 4 o'clock, I think I'm part of the Star Wars panel with Thomas Rochester and another amazing person. And then I am kicking off the adult section of HarleyCon with my Back Talk with Friends super show. And I've talked 4 or 5 different people into hopping the show. And basically we just start with debauchery and chaos all through for an hour and have terrible jokes, and it's uncensored. But it's usually a lot of fun, and we're usually just cracking. Show. Yeah. We're usually cracking each other up, and yeah, so that's coming up. So yeah, just a lot of that, and then graphic design work. And then if you like any of the artwork sitting behind me, you can head over to
artwork that you can bring a little bit closer to the camera.
Yeah. Let's see. This is one of my favorites right here. So this is before the pandemic, before the earth went to hell. This I used to paint, and I would live paint at different events and things like that. This is one of my live painting things. I created it in about 2 hours at a local convention here. And it is for sale. You can get most of these size ones are $200. If you check any of my social media or the HarleyCon page, you can see I have special discount codes, so you can get so much off some of these paintings. It's either like 50 or 75 bucks. But yeah, I have all the ones that you see down below here, and this one hiding back here of Amelia are for sale. And then there's a ton others on the site.
Now, if I were to purchase some of your art, yes. I would probably have to pay a little extra for shipping, of course, right?
Yes, we can always chat with that if you're out of the state. I think I have it set up for shipping to out of the country. I don't know if I have it right or not, but and I usually, like, if someone, really anybody that orders from me, I always appreciate it. So I usually give them a little bit extra, toss in a print or 2 and some stickers for my podcast and stuff. But I always try to hook you up if you're, if you got to pay some extra for shipping. I try to make it worth your while.
Excellent.
That's great. Yeah, we have, I'm looking at your trees that Nicole
I'm trying to see the Harry Potter one there.
Oh yeah, I can bring that up. Oh no. There we go. Yeah, this was actually painted at Sci-Fi Bartow. And it was actually this year. It feels like it was 2 years ago because of the pandemic, but this was actually, I think, we were at Sci-Fi Bartow, and it was all magic and myths and stuff like that for the theme this year. So I'm like, well, I got to do Harry Potter. And it's kind of like a different, almost like a tattoo style painting. So you've got the Elder One, you've got Always, Hedwig, Dobby's sock, Sorting Hat, the Switch, Harry Potter's glasses, 9 3/4, and then what the hell is that one? I don't know, some other Harry Potter thing. I know Harry Potter, but I'm not like love it as much as other things, so I only remember so much. But yeah, and then all these paintings you see here, the skinny ones are usually $200. Okay. There you go.
This was actually the first piece that Nicole bought from Josh when we first met him.
Yeah, that's one of my trees. I love painting those. It's been forever since I painted one of those. My mom has a giant one that I painted. It's like 48 by 24 inches tall.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it's up in our main hallway. And it was the first time I did. It kind of there you go. It kind of goes. It's like a rock tree thing sitting in a waterfall, and the waterfall goes down, and then all the leaves are blue and everything.
Okay.
I'm not painting, like I said, I'm not painting a ton, but if somebody wants like one of the trees or something special, you can always hit me up. I'm kind of at a not slow point, but the graphic design stuff has died down a little bit. I'm working on actually what is
Don't
it?
you do car wraps?
I don't do full wraps. I design stuff for my cars, and I'm actually doing stuff for Hanging With here in a little bit. But yeah, I took my 2020 Kia Soul, which is yellow, and my wife's 2020 Kia Soul, which is red. I turned mine into the J Bauer Art Batmobile, and there is a giant splatter Batman symbol across the side. And then I turned my wife into the Harley Quinn mobile. And hers is a little bit more subtle because I was yelled at and had to make sure I kept hers subtle. But hers is really cool. I have strips going down the bottom of her car, and it says like Harley Quinn with some hearts and stuff, little bombs. And then each side's different. Like one has the mallet and a hammer, and then the mask and something else. Oh, a bazooka. And then it's got the diamonds on the sides saying HQ. If you want to see any of those, you can head over to Instagram or Facebook. I posted the pictures of all the cars, and I'm working on the time-lapse video of the making of her car. But yeah, I'm working on Hanging With Web Show just got a new vehicle. So we're going to do, I work at a sign shop, so we're going to do perforated material. And it's going to be a full decal going on their back window and on 2 of their side windows. And the 2 sides will promote Hanging With Web Show, and the back's going to promote the HWWF or I'm going wrestling again. HWWS Web TV YouTube channel, which is probably where you're watching this on.
Nice. Yeah.
I just posted the HarleyCon event
Oh,
in
awesome.
the chat.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'll be there as well.
Yes.
I have a panel that I'm hosting for cosplay. So
Positivity.
yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and there's a ton of stuff with that. If you're into anything cosplay, anything nerdy, there's a variety of things for you. There's artist panels. There's
20 or 30 creators are involved in that, right? Something like that.
at the very least, yeah. And there's a Star Wars panel. There's some book panels, authors panels, and then like later in the evening, we switch up to do some more paranormal stuff, some ghost kind of stuff. My podcast with all the debauchery. So yeah, it's going to be a fantastic show. You can tune in all day. I hope you watch it all day. I'm waiting for you. I will be watching for you. And pants are optional. I will not be wearing any of them. So, have fun.
So, Willow, what about you? I know you've been doing some things with nerd culture and all that.
Yeah, you know what? I kind of started doing Willow's Pillow Talk a little bit more. It started off being just a random podcast. Now it's, I've been actually pretty busy with interviewing many people. I interviewed Amelia or Harley Quinn and one of the psychics that she has for HarleyCon, and that was interesting. They did a reading for me, so I look forward to hopefully doing another interview with HarleyCon for the HarleyCon stuff, and yeah. So if you want to join me on my show, Josh, I would love to have you.
Hell yeah!
Do an
Yeah, we'll
interview
figure out a
again.
time.
Yeah, so I appreciate Brian and Nicole bringing me here, and because I wouldn't have met half of you guys if it weren't for them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
here at the Hanging With Web Show family, we're a bunch of
Him. It's all him.
it's all
Yeah.
I'll take no credit. Like literally, I just come here. Well, I live here, so I kind of can't avoid it. But I just sit at the table.
You know the kind of people that Garrett and Sage
I know everybody.
I
I've
mean,
been on Sage and Garrett's show
multiple.
4 times now. So
Yeah, I think they're actually on until right now. So when you guys are done, when everybody's done watching this, head over to Hanging With. They're doing their social media day, doing a bunch of interviews for all different people. So you can go check that out. Tell him, tell Pop I said hi. Go bug him for me. My goal is to get on everybody's show and call him Pop on every show just to mess with him. And maybe I'll get a clip, like all of it together, and just send it to him. I can't pick on him in person yet, so I get my kicks and giggles through different shows right now.
Well, he kind of is like everyone's Pop.
Yeah,
So.
kind of.
See? He has an official mug too, so he's good to go.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Well, this week has been fun. Talk about heel turns. Maybe we'll do another, like maybe a baby face one down the road. I don't know. Next week we're talking about animation. That'll be fun.
There you go.
Yeah. But until next week, you guys take care.
Still need a tagline. Anybody want to help us out with that?
Yeah. Josh, come on. You know,
I'll work on something. You need like you should get an ending video. I don't know if it would be allowed though, but like cut little clips of like different wrestling people saying like and make a sentence out of it. But all these different wrestling people, that'd be fun. I'll keep thinking.
All right.
Usually when I'm doing something weird and tedious is when I come up with my best ideas. So I'll try to keep it in the back of my brain and send you stuff. Or we need to bug Terry. Terry always comes up with the best shit. He just came up because I want to start doing watch along episodes of Back Talk with Friends and like grab some people and do like watch alongs of movies or something. And he came up with a really cool name that I have to go hunt down. So yeah, maybe we'll have to bug him and get his help in that mix.
That's what we'll do.
Yeah.
All right. You guys take care. All right.
Bye, guys.